right? So it's that, are you serving that object or that addiction? Is that what you're in your primary relationship with? Or is your primary relationship with your spouse, right? Which is the same thing with God saying, hey, where's your primary relationship? You can't have two things. You want the world or me? Can I have both? Nope. Can't. You got to pick. Well, it's kind of the same thing with addiction and your spouse.
This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Hello and welcome to our show. We're so glad that you're joining us today, and we are talking about a really important topic that we've not touched on really, Ryan, yet to this date for the Celebrate MarriageCast. So we're talking addictions today. So whether you or your spouse have an addiction, we're going to dive into that with a professional counselor, friend of the Celebrate MarriageCast, Tony Boer of Sioux Empire Christian Counseling. Tony, welcome back to our show. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me back, and nice new place in here. I've not been in here. I like it.
Yeah.
New set
so
on
fancy.
The Celebrate MarriageCast. And Tony, you are our very first guest to have a Celebrate MarriageCast mug to use.
Yeah.
Cheers to everybody.
Cheers. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a great photo.
Yeah.
Very
right there.
nice.
Just a still shot of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we have the table, we have the mugs. We're moving up, Tony.
Moving up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Yeah. Anything else new, Tony? Soccer season going?
Soccer's kind of on the pause from indoor, starting outdoor here pretty soon, but getting ready for the summer and just going to have some fun summer plans. How about you guys?
Amazing.
Ready for the summer?
Yeah. I mean, our weather here has been so nice.
Yeah.
That we have spent, time outside. We took our dog outside to play some Frisbee with him and just had a great weekend and spent some time outside just reading and sitting on the deck, which was great too. You had a patio picture too.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a picture on your Instagram?
I do a lot of notes and paperwork sitting outside on my patio. It just feels great and enjoys it. And it's not too buggy yet, so it's perfect.
Love this season.
Yeah,
so awesome.
Absolutely. So, as Michelle said, this episode is a topic that we've not talked about on the show, but it's a huge marriage issue. I'm going to say it's a big thing that happens in marriages. So, what better guest to have talk about this and dive into this one? So, Tony, stats show that roughly 7% of marriages end in divorce due to addictions of some kind.
Wow.
But this doesn't tell the full story. So how many marriages just struggle and are unhealthy because of addictions?
Well, obviously a lot more than 7%. I was surprised when I got those notes. I'm like, wow, that seems kind of low.
Sure.
But I think the answer is addictions are so tricky and hard that there's lots of people that will suffer through addictions in their marriage, and it impacts quite a lot of people. So when the ones that actually go all the way to divorce is 7%, but there's a lot of them that will deal with addictions throughout their marriage. And we're going to talk about when we kind of change what addictions look like, then there's potential for all of us to have to deal with some of that addiction in there.
So are you saying that most marriages deal with some sort of addiction?
Well,
what do you mean by that?
If we talk about addiction, most people, when we say addictions, we think of like the alcoholic who's drunk all the time, or the drug addict who's just kind of out of their mind and just kind of checked out all the time. And that is certainly a part of addiction and can be really tricky and tough. But there's a lot of people that are addicted to stuff that they can still function. They can't thrive, but they can still function. So they go to work, do this. If we talk about alcohol, it's people that will drink on the weekends, but they go and do their work and they do all that stuff. And so therapists, we tend to think of addictions from the standpoint of anything that controls you and you don't control it.
That's a good definition.
Yeah.
Anything that controls you and you don't control it.
Because there's lots of people that will say, I can stop anytime. Well, you say that, and that sounds good, but then why will you still drink when your wife says, I really hate it when you drink. Can you not drink? Oh, it's not that big a deal. It's not okay. And so what ends up happening is they put the addiction before their relationship. And so if you use that kind of definition of anything that you can't control that controls you, then that kind of opens up that there are a lot of addictions. I want you guys to kind of think about
Sure.
You can be addicted to food, shopping, social media, cell phones are a big one, work, sports, TV. Those are all things that, man, if we're not paying attention to, they start to control us a little more than we would like to acknowledge, and then we put it before our relationship. And so that's what I mean from an addiction standpoint. Yes, there are people that are dealing with people that are on alcoholics or drug users and or gambling, right? Some of those are really hard things that impact relationships. But if you're not careful, there's a lot of things that can start to control us instead of us controlling them.
I feel like suddenly this episode just expanded its audience. I mean, when you look through it from that filter, Tony, of, so when you said, addictions can be anything, I thought of that, social media, or like you said, screen time, or sports, people being away, or maybe, hunting or shopping, or all of those things that when you look through a filter of, is it more important than my spouse? Is it controlling me, or am I controlling it? What is an addiction then? Right. Looking through that frame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine that is kind of blurry a little bit.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just thinking about Michelle, you said screen times and like social media. And I would imagine that it again, it's maybe not always clear cut. Like, how do you determine that? Like, if somebody's has we've talked about this, Michelle, on a previous episode about screen time. Sure. What is I'm just thinking of how do you determine that?
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like it's kind of subjective, right? It's only as much as you're willing to be vulnerable and admitting, is my screen controlling me, or am I in control of it? And that can be subjective too. So
yeah, the easier, kind of more concrete answer, kind of what you're looking for, is if you set some kind of rule and you keep breaking it, right? Oh, I'm only going to have one beer, and I keep having 2 or 3. Oh, I'm only going to be on my cell phone for an hour each night, and you keep breaking it, and you keep doing that. And so that's one way to look at it. The other thing is, how do you kind of figure that out? That subjective part is just like everything else we talk about. It's communication, right? If your spouse keeps talking to you and telling you, hey, cell phone, cell phone, cell phone, cell phone. Okay, we got to slow down and actually have a long conversation instead of the quick, fast stuff. So when we talk about addiction, what's one thing that addicts tend to do? What's the word? Do you guys know what I'm looking for?
Do they conceal it?
Close. Denial, hide, minimize it, conceal it, all those things. And so that's what you're kind of looking for. If someone says, hey, let's talk to you about your drinking. Well, I can quit anytime. It's fine. It's okay. It's like, whoa, all this denial comes this way. And you'll see that sometimes even with, we talk about shopping or hunting or cell phone use or screen time. Well, it's not that big a deal. Or I'm only on my phone because they were at soccer practice and I just had some time. It's like, whoa, you're getting really kind of defensive and trying to explain your side. And if you're starting to do that, that's that beginning of that denial piece where it's like, slow down. Are you in trouble or not? And a lot of times that reaction means they know they're in trouble.
What does that look like, Tony, I love that example or that guidance of setting a rule. So earlier this year, I had a social media detox where I knew that I wanted to be off of it, but I also have some work responsibilities. So I think I would allow myself 5 minutes a day or something like that for 30 days. And I don't even think I needed my 5 minutes a day. And I was so proud of myself. So I feel like through your filter there of the rule, I'm passing, and that feels great. But what do you how would you put that metric for shopping or like a hobby? Let's use a hobby or something. Would
hobby,
that be,
or even some people get addicted to work. How do you put that at work? Because we can, work's good, it's kind of okay, and we can kind of frame it in this positive thing, but you have to have that boundary or that rule. How often are you coming home? How many hours are you going to be at work? And talking and deciding that together, right? How did you pick the 5 minutes that you were going to be on there? What if Ryan was like, instead of 5 minutes a day, I want 5 minutes a week for you because I'm really frustrated with you on your phone. Okay, well, let's have that talk out and that communication out and figure that out and do that. So a lot of that is just what that metric is figuring out what it is for you guys as a couple. What is that rule for you guys in your marriage or any marriage when we're talking about addiction? And then it can be social media stuff, it can be alcohol, any of those things where people feel like it can get out of hand or it can get a little bit much. Is what's your rule? Spending is a good one. How often are we going to go out to eat? Well, let's set a rule or set a goal. What are we doing? But you set that together, right?
Sure.
One person in the party doesn't get to do that.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. So Tony, what's the impact that addictions can have on a relationship, on a marriage?
Yeah. So why we want to control this is addictions have a terrible, obviously, impact on relationships. And the impact is you just got to remember why the addiction starts or what happens. And most addictions are that person is checking out or escaping. And so the impact that you have in the marriage is, who are you in a relationship with? The addicted person or that authentic person that you fell in love with? And you'll hear that a lot of times when someone's the spouse who's dealing with another spouse that has addiction. She'll say things like, man, that's just not my husband. That's not who he is. I don't know him anymore. That's not this. Well, what she's saying is he's checked out, right? And we always talk with marriage, it's about connection and communication. Well, you can't connect with someone who's not there. And that's the impact that it has in relationships. They're checked out, they're numb. And so when you're trying to talk or have a conversation or do something, if that person is drunk, it's hard to have that conversation. If that person is at work and avoiding you, it's hard to have that conversation. If you're on your cell phone and you're not engaged to what's going on around you, that person's checked out. Hey, so you're talking like, okay. And they're not in. And so the biggest impact that addictions have is it just breaks that connection with each other.
This is kind of a branch off of that, Tony, but are most addictions kind of like a manifestation of some other hurt or habit, trauma, something like that? I'm just thinking like someone numbing themselves and scrolling on social media or just working. Is it some other unresolved issue?
Most of the time it's somebody checking out. So they're having a feeling that they don't like. And so I'm going to either bury that, escape from it, hide from it, go somewhere else, right? The person that drinks all the time is like, oh, why are you going to go drink? Well, I'm having a bad day or I'm feeling bad or I'm getting out of there. And then the other impact that it has is the poor spouse who's not addicted, they can't compete, right? Because it's an object. So when the guy goes to drink, it's the same every time. It's always there. It's always reliable. It always works. It always does the same thing every time. When I'm feeling bad and I go drink, I feel a little better. When I'm feeling bad, I go gamble. I feel a little better. I'm overwhelmed. I'll scroll. And so what happens is that poor spouse can't compete because the object is perfect. We as human beings, we're different, right? So all the time. So when my wife comes to talk to me, sometimes I'm a great listener. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes she comes to me and I'm like really kind and nice. Other times I'm attacking her or I'm mad and I'm angry. So when if that person has a choice of like, all right, am I going to go to this object that's predictable and reliable, that doesn't argue back, that's the same every time? Or am I going to go talk to this person where I don't know what I'm going to get and I could get in trouble and I could get yelled at as they go, and it just takes that connection a little further away.
Wow.
It's a long answer, but most of the time is people are usually trying to escape or avoid, right? We just call it a negative coping skill. So when we're feeling bad, it's like, all right, I can go over here and avoid stuff, or I can deal with it. And unfortunately, lots of people, we tend to just try and avoid and stuff it down.
Tony, what is, like, as a spouse, watching a spouse go through things like that, what is the difference between holding accountable and really supporting them, or the difference between enabling or creating codependency? Like, those are all terms that we've heard. And how does a spouse deal with it in a healthy way without leading them more astray?
Yeah. Okay. So now when we're switching to couples where there's a pretty serious addiction going on, where it's not just like, hey, can you get off your cell phone a little bit less? These are like big addictions with alcohol, drugs, or the cell phone where they're just totally on it hours a day and doing that. So one, you have to remember addictions are hard, right? So when we talk about support, is you really want to support that person, and it's hard because if you're that spouse, you're getting burned, you're getting hurt, you're getting distrust, all those things. But you can support by just acknowledging that's a really hard, tough thing to do. So you can do that and hold them accountable, right? Holding accountable is we're not going to make any rules that make the addiction easier to do. And sometimes you will hear people do that. It's like, well, it's okay. Or maybe this one time is like, no, the addiction, you can set your rules and boundaries so you can still hold people accountable. The enabling codependency, that's a popular word, and it's addiction and codependency go hand in hand. So if there's an addicted person, almost always there's somebody that's codependent. And what that usually means, or enabling, right? And enabling codependency, they sound terrible, but that's just meaning you're trying to help someone and it turned into an unhealthy way.
Can you like explain what that means?
Yeah, so it'll be things like, well, you'll hear this with people that have alcoholism, like, I don't want him drinking and driving because he might kill somebody, so I'm going to let him drink at our house.
Okay.
So that sounds kind of mean. The theory behind it makes sense. It's like, well, I can't control him. I can't do this. So he's going to drink anyways. So I'd much rather have him drink at home where I can see that and monitor that and do that so he's not drinking and driving. Where if we set the rule of no alcohol in the house, that person's like, well, I think he's going to go out and drink and do something else, and that'll be bad. And so it starts with a really healthy idea. I want to help. I want to set this thing, but turns kind of hurtful or unhealthy. And that's all what enabling or codependency means, is like, oh, we started on the right path, but we got kind of sidetracked. And a lot of times why they get sidetracked is because that spouse knows, man, if I set that rule of no drinking in the house, I kind of know how this is going to end.
Yeah, it's going to be painful.
It's going to be painful. He's going to be drinking somewhere else, and that's a worry. And so then we kind of change the rules, or we make them a little bit different, and then it starts to enable them to keep drinking.
Yeah. Is enabling the same as codependency, or what is an example of that one? Then?
It's same thing. Enabling codependency, same thing, just different words.
You're creating a situation where they're okay. Yep.
You're just allowing that person to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, Tony, as people are starting this conversation, like, how does it, how do you approach it from being like holding accountable versus being like combative? Like, because obviously they're feeling a hurt. They're feeling hurt from this addiction, feeling whether it's left out or left behind, whatever it is. How is that a constructive, I'm going to hold you accountable without being combative?
Right. Well, there's probably going to be some combative, right? Because notice what we talked about is like, oh, that denial or that arguing or that minimizing, and then the other person's like, no, I'm going to hold you accountable. Well, those two things are going to happen at once, and it's going to be tense. It's going to be tough. And where it gets really tricky is, well, when things get really tough and tricky and emotional, what does the addicted person usually do? Go check out, right? Yeah. They go numb, whatever their thing is. They go shopping, drinking, whatever that thing is, they check out. And then the other person is trying to connect, so they're trying to get to that person, and that person pulls away. Well, that didn't work really good. And so that combative part is really having that codependent person or that enabled person just to be really strong and go, no, this is what I need for our marriage. And to attack it from the perspective of, I want you back, and that's why I'm mad, and that's why I'm angry, is I want you, not shaming or bad or terrible. Like, I want you back. That's why I'm so mad and angry, is you're gone over there. I want more of you. I want you back. And to do that, but there's going to be a little conflict. There's no way around it.
Yeah. The other question, Tony, just as I'm thinking through this of just, I feel like I hear it a lot, and I'll be honest, like I'm probably guilty of this as well, of this, I need some checkout time.
Yeah.
Like, when, and part of it is because like
dog videos on YouTube Shorts.
Right. So like, where does that cross the line of like, okay, I need to check out. it's been a bad day. And part of it is, honestly, yes, I'll say that. Like, it's been a bad day. Like, where does that cross the line? Because I hear people say that all the time. Like, oh, hey, I just need to check out for a little bit. I need to go on my phone, or I need to do this and whatever.
Because, Ryan, I would just say that I don't feel like yours is causing issues in our relationship. Like, it might just be a few minutes when you get home just to like decompress and show up better for us.
Right.
And I feel like you're controlling it. It's not controlling you. I don't find you like sneaking around while like trying to like...
quick, gotta watch a dog video.
Right? Some of them are really good.
Right. No, but we hear that a lot. At least I hear that a lot.
No, so an answer to your question is a lot of these things aren't terrible and bad. So if you're scrolling on your phone, or you need to go shopping, or hobbies, any of these things is, if you do them in moderation and have them balanced, there's not a problem. Like you said, it's like, hey, I don't think you're doing on your phone too much. Having that, anything in moderation is good. The other part that you have to always just look for is, how are you guys deciding that, right? How do you know when it's a problem? And it's usually going to be, what's your spouse saying? Because if I say it this way, hey, are you willing to give up your phone to keep your wife?
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
For sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Take it right now.
Right.
That's really easy, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what happens is, we don't really communicate that. Well, I'm frustrated. Yeah, it's not a big deal. I'm frustrated. So we kind of get in this big thing, and it gets kind of messy. But if we just really take it to that extreme, it's like, well, Tony, no, I'm choosing my wife every time. Okay. Well, now there's this room to kind of work and see that. But if you get stuck, it's not. But taking a break, we all need that time to go down and chill out and relax and just do something different. Sitting out. We talk about sitting outside, going for walks. And then the other thing with that is, that can't be your only thing, right? When you talk about how do I do, if whatever's like, whenever you get frustrated, I got to go look at dog videos. No, we're picking on you, but you said that, buddy.
No, I said it.
That's fine.
It's a good, safe one to talk about.
That's fine.
Yeah. But, and so if it's like, if that's your only...
We have a crazy dog, so it's like training tips.
Videos? Okay.
Yeah, like...
So, but if it's like, hey, whenever I get overwhelmed, stressed, I always got to go to this one thing and do this, that's a bad setup.
Sure.
If it's like, hey, what do you like to do? Well, I can either go for a walk. I need to talk to my wife about this. There's other ways to solve that, and that's one of them. That's one of your coping skills.
Sure.
Great, cool. If it's your only coping skill, it's going to get abused.
Yeah. That's a great clarification. Do you have other ways to cope with stress?
Yeah. So, Tony, I think, a really important question is, if a person's listening or watching and is actually in a relationship with someone who has an addiction, like, what is their first step? What do they do?
Okay. Yeah. If you are the spouse of someone that's in an addictive relationship, you need to remember, if it's out of control and it's big and you're kind of recognizing that enabling or codependency kind of pattern, is you have to set the rules. Right? The addicted person doesn't get to set the rules because they're going to keep changing them and doing them. Now, what those rules look like, you get to do that. And that's a really hard thing, because when we talk about addictions, we talk about relapse, and they go good for a while, and then they have the problem, they slip back. And that is a crazy journey. And each person gets to decide that on their own. But when you set the rules, is your rule may be, if you're drinking, you cannot come home and you can't be around the kids drunk. That's the rule. Someone may take a different rule and say, if you drink again, you need to go to treatment. A different spouse may take the rule of, if you drink one more time, we're done and I can't keep doing this anymore. So whatever rule it is, just know that you get to set it, and you have to set it to try and bring that relationship back. And you're trying to do that from this framework of, you don't want the addicted person anymore. You want your spouse.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you're trying to keep telling that spouse is, I want the whole you back. I want the connected you back. And that's what the spouse needs to do. I would also say, if you're an addicted person, because addicted people sometimes know that, right? And so if you're that addicted person, you got to stop bending the rules, right? You're going to have to pick. I kind of said that to you, like, you have to pick your addiction or your spouse. And if we make that really clear, that's the choice you have to make.
Yeah.
And when we phrase it that way, that sometimes is helpful, that person can kind of see that and recognize, man, I keep saying all these lies. I keep doing all these things that make our relationship terrible and bad. I have to pick. Yeah. And kind of the answer is
addiction, spouse.
And you can't pick both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so good. So good. Do you think people, I mean, do they have these conversations on their own? Or would you recommend people having them in with a professional counselor?
Because it feels scary.
If they're addicted,
big role for a spouse to have.
If you can get your spouse to come into therapy, it's a healthier, better, safer place to do that. A lot of times, the addicted person doesn't want to come in, right? So that's the challenge. And so that's one of those rules is I have lots of spouses. How do I get my addicted spouse to come in? How can I get him to come? They say no, they won't want to. And I'm like, okay, well, is it a choice or not? And they're like, if it's not a choice, then you got to phrase it that way and tell them that way.
Sure.
But we got to talk through that. It's don't make that ultimatum if you're not ready. But sometimes you're asking an addicted person to stop their addiction and come in and work on it. Usually doesn't work good, right? Usually it has to be that firm boundary. If you don't come in, we're separated, or you're sleeping in the basement, or you're doing this, and I don't want that. Okay, then let's come in and start doing that. So it's being firm, but you ask about that. If it gets kind of tense, it does get tense and aggressive at times.
Because unless something happens, unless they're maybe in a valley or there's an accident or something, and they're kind of shaken out of it, they're probably thinking, hey, I have my coping, I'm good in my addiction. They probably don't want to change.
Well said. You could be a therapist, right? Because the answer...
We just talk to a good one a lot.
The answer is so why would the addicted person want to quit? Right? Their goal is to keep it going as long as possible. Oh, I got my addiction and my spouse. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try and keep this going as long as I possibly could. That's kind of what you're talking about. What's going to make them stop? As soon as they have to make this choice, it's that gets tricky and hard. But until then, usually the addicted person's goal is, can I keep this going? Can I keep doing this? Can I keep going? That's why it gradually gets worse and worse and more, because their goals keep things the same. And the other spouse is working on, no, we got to bust that up, because that's the one thing we don't want to do.
Yeah. Are there resources for a spouse going through this too? I mean, can they maybe come meet with a counselor to kind of prepare to have this conversation with their spouse? Yes. I feel like maybe that'd be a helpful thing too.
That's a great reason to go to counseling is, hey, I need to come, and can you help me as a therapist figure out what my rules are, what my boundaries are?
Sure.
I'm trying to decide, I don't know if I want to blow up my marriage because of this, but I need to figure out how to make it work and function a little bit better, and doing that and sorting some of those things out is a really healthy, good thing to do.
Yeah, it's great. Tony, do you have anything else for us? I know you brought a scripture. Do you want to get that?
Yes.
I thought that was so good.
I was just thinking is that it's the classic Matthew 6:24 is you can't serve two masters, right? So it's that, are you serving that object or that addiction? Is that what you're in your primary relationship with, or is your primary relationship with your spouse, right? Which is the same thing with God saying, hey, where's your primary relationship? You can't have two things. Mm-hmm. You want the world or me? Can I have both? Nope.
Yeah.
Can't. You got to pick. Well, it's kind of the same thing with addiction and your spouse. Just use that verse and that reminder. It's like God's smart, right? He knows everything. He's the smartest person ever. And so he's like, hey, I don't think this is going to be good if you're trying to do two things at once. And notice what God says. It's the same thing with our spouse. God goes, I want all of you. Mm-hmm. I want every piece of you.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's way easier to do that than, what else? God goes, I want all of you. It's kind of that same thing. That's what that spouse is saying to that addicted person. I want all of you. I don't want to share. I don't want to have to do this. And that's healthy. It makes your relationship stronger. So,
yeah.
As always, God knows best.
Yeah. And probably painful to go through some of these conversations, but so much better on the other side. Correct. For the couple going through it. So, guys, do you have anything else? Any final parting thoughts?
Oh, I don't think so. Just thank you, Tony, for going through this. Obviously, this is a topic that impacts a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think just even from the start, I was like, my eyes were opened more, coming into today, Michelle, I was thinking of, okay, drugs, alcohol,
pornography,
big things. And so part of like my eyes were opened and a lot. And I can see that I think a lot of marriages struggle with some form of this, and so thank you for coming on and just tackling this topic.
Absolutely. It's fun to help people, fun to talk. That's why you guys do the podcast.
Yeah.
And hey, we're just trying to help people and steer them in the right direction and make marriages better.
Tony, any parting thoughts for our listeners or encouragement for people going through this?
The deep breath should tell you the answer is addictions are really hard and they do take a toll on a marriage. And don't give up. Keep hanging in there. Know if you're that spouse of an addicted person and what you're wanting is your partner back, and to keep remembering that and sending that message to him despite everything else, or her. Just sending that message that, hey, I want more of you. And hopefully that will encourage you to keep going and taking those risks and setting those rules and those boundaries. And then if you're that addicted person, him or her, you got to choose. And if you frame it, which one you choose in, your spouse or that addiction, a lot of times it makes it a lot clearer.
So good. Thank you, Tony, for being here today so much. Once again, for our listeners, Matthew 6:24, you can't serve two masters. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Celebrate MarriageCast. We have resources for you at Celebrate.church/marriage. And I'm going to do the outro again. I'm going to take a drink of my water. Thank you so much, listener, for joining us today on the Celebrate MarriageCast. We have resources for you at Celebrate.church/marriage, and we're just so grateful for your listenership. We would love to have you leave us a review and a comment. Additionally, if you haven't followed or subscribed to receive our updates, do that so you can never miss an episode and get those alerts. Have a great week.
Have a great week.